Welcome to Chalk Talk, Danville Public Schools Weekly News Magazine. I'm Diane Locker, your host. We've got a very important thing to talk about this week, and that's money. Money is always important, and when you start thinking about going to college, it gets very important. We're going to be talking this week with one of our local agencies about financial aid for scholarships. We're at the Minnie Maude Charitable Trust. I have Fred Webb here with me, and Fred is the director of the trust.
That's correct.
Now, Fred, this is the time of year when we start applying to colleges and thinking about paying for it. So I want to talk with you about deadlines, about how you apply, who can apply. But I think one of the things I'd like to do, like we do every single year, and we've done this for about 7 or 8 years now, is I want to go back to the history of the Minnie Maude Trust. And the reason I do this, and I don't do this on a lot of things when we start talking about financial aid, is because this is so local. This is so our community. It's a family affair, and it goes back to JT. So let's start off talking about JT. Who is JT and who is Minnie Maude?
JT was James T. Emerson, who was the one that left us the money to start the program. Minnie Maude was his mother. So James was born in the Schoolfield area of Danville in the 20s. The family moved to Caswell County to a tobacco farm in March of 1930 after his father had lost his job in the cotton mill.
Let me ask you something. When you're not knowing the history, you say JT Minnie Maude, you think JT Minnie Maude, maybe that's one name. Who made the decision to be JT Minnie Maude? Was it JT himself, or was it the family afterwards?
No, it was himself.
That was his regard for his mother. They were very close.
That is correct. And again, his father died in 1940, February of 1940. Okay. His mother never remarried. James never married. So he was always very close to his mother.
How old was he when his father died?
James would have been 16.
Okay. So his father died at 16, so therefore with his mother, helping his mother, that was that closeness there.
Yes.
Okay.
James was the third oldest. His oldest brother died in 1939. So they never had a whole lot growing up. James was in the Army Air Corps during World War II, got out, utilized the GI Bill, went to Danville Technical Institute, and then transferred to the University of Alabama.
You said Danville Technical Institute. Has that morphed into something else?
It is now DCC, Danville Community College.
Okay, so he went basically to Danville Community College.
That's correct.
Okay.
He went on to the University of Alabama, got a degree in industrial engineering. So James, when he worked, made good money, but he made his money in the stock market.
Now, and see if I remember even us talking, Circuit City.
Yes, which is now bankrupt.
Which is
been long gone.
Yes.
But he bought it when it was called Ward's Electronics, and he made millions of dollars on that one stock.
Is that like Montgomery Wards, the old Montgomery Wards?
No, actually it was just Ward's Electronics. It was a little local Richmond company that morphed into Circuit City. And though Circuit City, you say, is bankrupt, it spun off a company called CarMax. CarMax used to be
That's the used car place.
Right, that also now sells new cars in a lot of locations.
Yeah, but that's a huge thing.
It is a huge thing, and it used to be solely owned by Circuit City.
I did not know that. That's part of the history you haven't told me all these years.
Well, that's true. That's true. So James, the stock market was one of his two passions in life, golf being the other. And he didn't learn how to play golf till he went to the University of Alabama.
Now, University of Alabama, after
Danville Technical Institute.
Okay, all right.
So
that wasn't a graduate degree, that was just the completion of a 4-year degree.
That's correct.
Okay.
He ended up at Alabama because of, as in most things in life, politics got in the way.
Why? How?
The president of Virginia Tech at the time wanted more money out of the governor to take all these veterans into the campus. And in order to try to strong-arm the governor into giving him more money, he was going to make James and several others at Danville Technical Institute be part of the Corps of Cadets and answer to people younger than they were.
At Virginia Tech.
At Virginia Tech, and they were like, no way, we're not going to do that. So they went college shopping at that point, and NC State was only taking North Carolina residents. Georgia Tech was going to make them repeat a couple of classes they didn't want to repeat. So they ended up, most of them ended up at Alabama, a couple of them ended up at University of Kentucky. Once they committed to Alabama, then Tech changed their mind and said, well, no, we'll take you as a regular student. And at that point, it was like, no, we're not going to do it. We've committed to Alabama, we're going to go.
So he graduated from Alabama?
University of Alabama in 1951.
Okay.
Worked at a number of different jobs until the 60s, and then became an independent contractor. He had a guy that would line up jobs for him. So
but what kind of jobs? Independent contractor?
he was an
what?
industrial engineer. So he was really big on instrumentation, designing. When he was in Pittsburgh working for a chemical company, he worked on a number of desalinization plants in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Though he never left Pittsburgh.
All right.
He worked in Pittsburgh, but the jobs were all in Saudi Arabia, and he was just doing the plans and layouts.
Now, how do you go from, you made the statement that he was raised very simply.
Oh, yes.
How did we go from being raised very simply to giving away $14 million since 2007? I mean, where did that big jump? I know we talked about Circuit City and we talked about the stock market. If I remember correctly, the stock market is where his wealth came from.
Yes,
is that a true statement?
That is true. He again, he made good money when he worked, but the bulk of his money came from investing. He was introduced to the stock market in the late 50s.
How? I think to work with the stock market, especially now, is a very iffy,
Much different.
Iffy thing. Where did his knowledge come to make those kind of investments? I mean, we could just say he was lucky, but I think it had to be something more than that.
He did an awful lot of hard self-study.
Okay.
Especially late in life. He might listen to an idea you had for an investment, but he wouldn't put any money in it until he did his own research.
Okay.
So even when he had full commission brokers, he just didn't if the guy called up with an idea, he didn't say, well, just go with it. He'd think about it a while before he called him back and say yes or no.
Now, there was another thing. You said that JT had never married and Minnie Maude never remarried. But I remember, just from personally knowing you and some other members of your family, he also supported his extended family during that time, didn't he?
Oh, yes. Anytime someone was in need, or especially growing up, he supported schoolwork. I remember in elementary and junior high, if you got AB honor roll, you got some money in the mail. You know, he always encouraged education as a way to better yourself.
Now, he obviously, from what you're just saying, had a strong feeling about education. Was it his idea to set up the trust?
Totally.
To benefit education, mainly in Pittsylvania County, Caswell County?
Well, now, the trustees chose the 5 counties we operate in, which
But
it was his idea to do the bulk of what we do as scholarships. 50 to 75% of what we pay out each year go to higher education scholarships.
But you also do things where you, scholarships, and we'll talk about those later, not scholarships, but you fund some things in the community.
That's
Is that
correct.
what JT wanted?
JT specified that part. When he set up his will, which the trust originated from, we ended up with, his parameters were 50 to 75% were to go towards higher education scholarships, 25 to 50% would go to charitable grants. On the grant side, he specified that it had to be for the benefit of the residents of Danville, Pennsylvania County. On the scholarship side, he did not specify the area in which to operate. Our trustees made those decisions to an extent based on when Minnie Maude left the farm in the late 40s. Mm-hmm. She ran a produce stand at the Danville Curb Market, which used to be across from where the Danville Parks and Recreation Department is today. And she ran that until the early 60s. And she utilized and got product from producers in Halifax, Henry, Pennsylvania County in Virginia, and Caswell and Rockingham County in North Carolina. So that's how we came up with the 5 counties that we serve.
Now, he was obviously a family man, an extended family man. Is it a correct statement to say that now the trust, let's not talk about what you give away, let's talk about how you function. Your, quotes, board of directors, whatever you call them, yourself, you're all members of his family, aren't you?
All but one. 4 of our 5 trustees are family members. We have 1 trustee that's not.
How did that one slip in?
Yeah, I'll just plead that on that.
Okay, all right. Well, I think we've made the point, and the point that I think that is so important is that JT is a product of our community, and probably a wonderful example of giving back to our community. What I'd like to do now is we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I want to talk about the scholarships. I want to talk about financial aid and how you get that.
Let me mention one quick thing about JT as it related to education. He always would tell folks that though an education did not guarantee you success, it gave you the ability to compete.
And that's pretty good. That's a pretty good statement. We're going to take a short break now, but be sure to come back because we're going to get into the basics and the mechanics of applying for financial aid for college. Be sure to come back.
Hello, my name is J.D. Edmonds, and this is my wife,
Janine Edmonds.
I am the Bond and Booster President, and I'm encouraging all you parents to get involved with your child's education, get involved with the community, and show your support for your kids' school.
Continue to be that bridge between the community, school, and family.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexandra Reddy and I'm the Beta Club President here at Galileo Magnet High School. Let me tell you about Beta Club. Beta Club is a national academic club that focuses on community service. And in fact, our motto is let us lead by serving others. So every month, the Beta Club here at Galileo completes a service project for our community and also for our school. And then in February, we travel to the state convention where we compete with other schools in the areas of English, science, social studies, talent competitions, and it's a really awesome experience. But I also have the honor of being the Virginia State Beta Club President, an election that I won back in February at the convention. So this means that I have to travel to at least 2 other state conventions this year. There's North Carolina, South Carolina, all across the country that I am able to travel to. So I'm very blessed to be the state president, and I'm excited for what the year holds and making Galileo proud and making Virginia Beta proud.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, in the first half of the show, we've been having a conversation with Fred Webb, who is the director of the JT Minnie Maude Charitable Trust. What we talked about in the beginning is the history of the Charitable Trust, and what we want to do in this half of the show is talk about how you apply for financial aid for college. Fred, I saw some things in the newspaper yesterday, and I thought, perfect, I'm going to see him tomorrow. $14 million given away since 2007. Is that correct?
That's correct, and about half of that is scholarships.
Okay. Scholarships. If half of it's scholarships, what's the other half?
The other half is charitable grants. There are a number of organizations and projects that we've supported over the years. We have over $600,000 in the new Y.
Now, let's clarify something. When you say you've supported them, these are what we call
501c3s.
Tax-exempt.
That's correct.
Charitable type organizations. Okay, now you said you have, I know you put something into the Y.
The Y, we'll end up with several $100,000 in Averett's new athletic stadium, the football stadium. We have probably over $400,000 in the Ag Center north of Chatham.
Now, football stadium, Ag Center, YMCA. When you look at something for the 503C tax exempt things, let me put it that way, what are you looking for? Are you looking for what goes back into the community, or are you what's there?
James in his trust document didn't spell out any theme, any organizations or particular themes that we had to follow from a charitable grant standpoint. So the trustees have funded a wide range of basic needs like God's Storehouse, or after-school programs like Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club. We've done an awful lot of money to city and county fire and rescue units.
What I hear, though, when in all of those and everything you've mentioned, these are organizations that are definitely giving back to our community.
That's correct.
Our community.
And I think that's the one big thing that
Local.
The trustees look at, is trying to better the lives of the local people and to help organizations that provide services not only to a certain segment of population as far as youth or elderly or the hungry, but also organizations that just help the population in general.
When the trustees, when they look at, and we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when you look at scholarship applications, when you look at these community applications, what are you looking for?
It can vary from time to time with our trustees, but primarily it's impact.
Okay.
Sometimes you know that you're just doing something that's just going to get an organization or its clientele over the hump per se. But I think a lot of times they're looking for something that's got a lasting impact, something that either immediately will show an impact that will last, or one that is an investment that in the future will see the impact.
So $7 million of your $14 million that's been given away since 2007 has gone to, let's call them community organizations, and what you call, these are grants.
That's correct.
Let's now talk about, I think would come under the classification of scholarships.
Yes.
All right, and when we talk about scholarships, and I know from the past, you have two different kinds.
We have traditional and non-traditional.
Let's talk about traditional, because traditional is probably the one that the people in the audience are the most interested in right now. Now, define traditional scholarships for me.
Traditional students will be those that leave directly from high school and go to college, or have at least less than a 2-year gap in their education.
All right, I'm a graduate. I'm going to graduate from either Galileo or George Washington High School in 2016. If I apply to you, I am a traditional scholarship student. If I graduated in 2014, I've been out working for a while, and in 2016, I could apply and still be a traditional scholarship student.
That's correct, because you have less than a 2-year gap in your education.
All right. What do I do if I want to apply in either of those classifications?
You go to our website, jtmm.org, and click scholarships. Read through our requirement. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to live in one of our 5 counties consecutively for at least 12 months to apply. And then as you go through, it will link you to our online application. There you will complete that online application. Within that application is a link to print some paperwork, some of the forms you need to submit us, and information.
What do you mean, a link to print them? I mean, what?
We have a 2-part application.
Okay.
Part of it is online and part of it's paper.
Okay.
If you do not do both parts, you do not have a chance.
Let's stop right here and make a statement that we like to make each year when we're talking about filling out these applications, and it's something I think that the trust learned after a few years. A deadline is an absolute deadline. We don't want any the dog ate my homework stories. Is that?
No, that's correct. We have an April 6th due date for both the online and the paperwork.
That would be April 6th, 2016.
That's
is
correct.
the deadline for any scholarships this year.
For JT Minnie Maude traditional.
Yes, okay.
Because there are different rules for the non-traditionals.
Okay.
But for the group we're speaking to today,
The one we're talking about right now.
traditional students, it is April 6th. It has to be in our office or clearly postmarked April 6th, or it will be rejected. If you are missing one piece of paper that we require, we're not going to call and ask you for it. It didn't get here complete.
Okay.
We have 100 students a year that don't do a complete application, and they don't have a chance.
And you're not going to be calling them up saying
We
it's
get
not
way too
complete.
many.
We're not going to send it back to them saying it's not complete. It just won't be considered.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's fair. Because you'd spend a lot
And
of time.
it's not only, it's true for most scholarship programs. You get so many applications, you can't put the time in to babysit each one to make sure that it's correct.
How many years did it take the trust to learn that?
We tried to work with students the first probably 3 years.
Okay.
And then it was like, wait a minute, we're getting too many to start chasing all the errors. So, and right now it comes down to you got to read what the rules are.
Yes.
If you just start looking for something to fill out, then you're going to miss that it's a two-part application.
Now, everything that you need to read is online when you go to scholarships.
That's correct.
Okay, everything that you need is there. All right. When you get these, and is this a correct statement? You're not, 99% of scholarships and financial aid are based on the fact that you can't afford to go to school or some type of thing like that. Isn't it true that that's not a steadfast rule in your scholarships?
That's correct. Each scholarship can have its own rules and its own parameters. We look at 3 different factors in determining scholarship awards. It may be based on 1, 2, or all 3, but we are primarily interested in academics, financial need being second, and student character being third. We require an essay, a letter of rec, and an activities form, and from those 3 pieces, we score them to come up with kind of a character piece. And I would say over the 7 years that academics has probably been the strongest factor as opposed to the other 2.
2 things. You mentioned when you talked about your community grants, the impact that it would have. Don't you also look at the impact that each individual student would have? What is it that you want to do when you go to college?
To an extent, but they have funded kids from all spectrum of what they want to do in
What
life.
they want to do, okay.
And I mean, anywhere from music majors to engineers to doctors to, in fact, this spring we will have our first student who will have gotten funded for 8 years, 4 years as a traditional student and 4 years as a graduate. And he's finishing VCU Medical School this May.
That's super. Don't you also, and I guess this would come out either in your application or in your essay, you put an emphasis on community service, don't you?
20 hours of community service are required to renew your scholarship. We are unlike most scholarship programs in that you can renew your scholarship. So if you're awarded a scholarship in June of this year, between the middle of June this year and June 1st, 2017, we would require you to perform 20 hours of community service as part of the renewal process.
Okay, wait a minute now. I'm going to go to Virginia Tech. I've got a scholarship from you. I start in 2016 at Virginia Tech. Between 2016 and 2017, I need to do 20 hours of community service.
That's correct. They can be done at school, in the community, or elsewhere. There's only a few things.
Who
we look at.
validates that for you?
We have a form that they fill out that's got a contact name and number if we need to verify.
When I get the scholarship, is that for 1 year? Is that for 4 years, or does it depend?
Each scholarship is 1 year, but as I say, they are renewable, and we'll renew it at least 3 times for an undergraduate degree.
All right, let's talk about renewal. I've been funded. I'm going to the University of Virginia. I'm getting ready to finish my freshman year. I can apply again to you
That's
to
correct.
take care of my sophomore year. And if all works well, my grades are
You have to
come into
maintain
it.
a minimum of GPA of a 2.5, do a less cumbersome renewal out, and perform the 20 hours of community service, and we will renew your scholarship at or above the amount you received the first year.
Where's my renewal scholarship
It's the same.
application?
It's the same online application. You just don't have to do all the paperwork.
So you
just
can do the
part
whole
of it.
thing online.
No,
Except-
we still require the transcript, the parent's tax return, and the checklist, or the three pieces of paper that have to make it to our office
For
a renewal.
For a renewal, and those are also included in the original too.
Right.
Okay, so I can renew each year of my 4 years. Now, that's my traditional a scholarship. After my 4 years, I'm a graduate student. Do I become a non-traditional?
Yes, anyone going to graduate school is considered a non-traditional. Anyone going to school after a 2-year break in their education would be non-traditional. And even if you received a GED, let's say you're 19 years old and you got a GED, we would consider you a non-traditional. And the reason for that is that you didn't go through the normal school process, so the comparisons get off a little bit. The application is exactly the same, except for non-traditional students, we require 2 letters of recommendation.
From?
As long as it's not a family member.
Okay. Now, also in these non-traditional students, we've talked about you've been out of school longer than 2 years. You're also talking about that individual, correct me if I'm wrong, that might have worked for some company that went out of business and you've been out there working
we've had
for
a number
years.
of older adults.
Older adults that want to go to some type of retraining, or that GED student that wants to go into a program that may be a certification of a 2-year type thing for employment.
Yes, and I mentioned that we require 2 letters of recommendation as a difference between the 2 applications. We also have 3 deadline dates for non-traditionals, where for traditionals we only have 1. For non-traditionals, we actually have 3. February 1st, June 1st, and October 1st. And that also coincides with their deadline dates for our grant applications.
We've run out of time, but I want to reemphasize before we close that April 6th is the deadline for traditional students. And remember, traditional students are those students that might be graduating this year, or someone that graduated, let's say, in 2014.
Or a kid that's already in college. Let's say they missed their application last year. Even if you're already a sophomore, junior, or you'll be a rising senior, you can, in college, you can still apply to us for 1, 2, or 3 years.
That's a renewal application.
No. That's if you have not received an award in the past, you can still apply as a brand new student, even if you're going to be a senior next year in college.
In college.
You would only be looking at funding for 1 year, but you can apply at any stage of the collegiate spectrum.
That traditional student includes someone that might already be in college that has never applied to the trust before.
Right.
I want to thank you for, once again, explaining all of this, and thank you and your family and JT and Minnie Maude for what they've done for this community. I see your signs all over the community for things that you're funding, and I know how well you work with the students and giving scholarships. So we appreciate, as a school system, and Danville Public Schools, everything that you do for us.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity every year to speak to the school community and the community at large here in town. And just a reminder, there are ample resources available. There are other community organizations, you'll be running those at the bottom of the screen, that provide scholarship money as well to local students. But you have to make the effort to go find it.
You've got to do it. You've got to do it. Fred has closed the show for me perfectly, but I want to just say one more time how much we appreciate all of these organizations that fund our students' education. I want to thank all of you for being with us this week, and ask that you come back next week and find out what we're doing here in Danville Public Schools.